I'm just finishing off a course at Harvard Business School on sustainability and sustainable business strategies. And 1/3 of the course is dedicated to talent, because talent is so important. It's so vital to solving business and global problems. That made me think, how are we doing with our talent pipeline in procurement and supply chain? Well, 2.5 million students went to university in the UK last year, of which 1.8 million students received student loans. Why am I telling you that? Well, a short story. My daughter's just gone to university, and last year, well, late last year, we were working through the whole student loan process. And you have to put in their parents' occupation. Procurement, supply chain, purchasing, it just doesn't exist. It's not there. So she said to me, biochem is cool. It's trending, it's lit. And procurement, mother, it's not on my drop-down. So that's potentially 1.8 million students whose drop-down we're not on. All's not doom and gloom. So the previous speaker just talked about time for change, and I truly believe that we can make this change. So if you look at this is typically used, this sort of graph, to look at the life cycle of a product, a company, an industry, a function. So as you can see in procurement, we started off and our performance went up gradually over time, and we've kind of got to this point, this tipping point now, where we could be one of many things. We could be looking after risk and compliance, sustainability, driving innovation, doing more cost savings. We could really be whatever we want to be. But the point is, we have to decide what we're going to be. Otherwise, this S-curve, it's going to take us to uncertainty. And that's not very attractive, and that's not going to help us on that drop-down. So, while you're reading the data, what I did was, I'm not a consultant, but I reached out to 200 people in my network, 100 procurement professionals and 100 stakeholders of procurement. And I asked them 2 questions. What are the chances of business expectations for procurement to increase? So getting into ethical sourcing, driving innovation for the business, helping with the bottom line, more and more and more, it's increasing. So what are the chances it's going to continue to increase? And the other question, well, what is the chances of procurement performance increasing? And that's human and system. Are we going to get better? Are the systems, the solutions going to get better? And you do your probability scenario on it. So let's go with simple 70-30. I asked them the question, and interestingly, almost 50% put us in that right quadrant. So more than almost half said, yes, disruptive procurement. The business expectations will only continue, and the performance will continue to increase as well. So fantastic. Interestingly, less than 10% said BAU. We're not going to stay the same. So we need to really think about, okay, if the expectations are increasing and the performance is increasing, are we creating an environment for us to flourish? You cannot have the same environment for something different. You'll get frustrated procurement. So how do we operate today? What does our environment look like? We have our procurement house. Yep. Strategic pillars. And the great segmentation triangle. Yesterday, I participated on a panel looking at hundreds of startups, systems, solutions, amazing technologies, solutions to those real business problems. They'll get crushed under that triangle. They are not going to make it up that segmentation through our strategic pillars and through that procurement house. It continues to go around. So the same does not deliver anything new. and we all know that. We need to change this, otherwise those critical partners that we're looking for, that talent that we're looking for, that we need to solve those business problems, to help the business grow, it's simply just not going to be reality. So what are we doing? Okay, so best in class. Today's best in class is tomorrow's average. Best in class, we just saw, the house of procurement, the strategic pillars, so. It's not fit for business. And as we enter into this era of disruption, it's more and more prevalent. So we need to make changes. So what we're doing is really trying to create something which is much more simple. Fit for business means we can be agile to move with the business, to morph with the business. We don't constantly have to feed the beast best in class. It also means that the simplicity itself will attract that future talent that we need, and those critical partners will find it much more accessible to work with us. So we've structured it into simple, the power of 3. So focus. First, let's get our focus straight. It's simple: drive profitability, enable growth, whilst ensuring protection, and simultaneously. These are the 3 challenges every single CEO has on their table. And via supporting these 3 challenges, we're helping our finance team, our commercial team, the R&D team, and we're constantly growing and shifting, helping the bottom line and also top line growth. The second is around strategy and applying 2 parts in terms of strategy. First of all, you have your modular strategy, which is really looking at how the business we have today, the procurement, the demand we have today, and how do we do this better. It's about productivity and efficiency and driving surplus performance. In parallel, then you need to have specialized strategy. This is for your new product introduction. That's where you can really take the time to scout the market for those innovations and business problem solutions and procure innovation. We don't have to create all the products and services. The previous speaker said, for every problem, somebody is working on a solution. You just have to find it. And you can't find it if you're constantly in that cycle. So having those 2 parallel strategies will enable to support today's operations and demand and also secure that future. And then the last part is targeted performance. And that's with your team, your partners, and the processes and the systems. So with the team, we're really focusing around high-performance team. Not around your typical, previous academies that we had, really heavy and cumbersome, but really looking at high performance. That's the target. So what do we need to do to get to high performance? And we've been doing things such as putting in OKRs, so objectives and key results. This means the team come together and really shape that end state. They own it, they understand it, the key milestones they can then deliver and be rewarded as they're going on the journey. The partners, come on, bring on those disruptors, right? The game changers. The same partners are going to give us the same solutions. We need to identify new partners who aren't giving the next company the same solution, but providing us something which is different. I met I went to another conference where we were looking at a diverse supplier base. And one of the SME suppliers said, for the big guys, you're just another client. For us, your business, your problem, that is our business. We don't go home at 5 o'clock. We go home when we solve your problem. So, think a little bit around the partners you're working with. And then it's the processes and the systems. I really believe you can engineer culture. Some might say what. But culture is really how we do things. And some of the how is written down, and some of it isn't. That's process, simple. I like to oversimplify things. So by looking at your process today, how you're doing things, really doing that process mining, what's mapped out and what's not, and how many deviations you have from what's mapped out, and understanding the reason, you can then put in place a map that you've put design thinking into and said, this is the culture I want, and therefore it requires this process. What systems then do is it locks in that process and it governs that process. So we are really on this journey at looking at best in class was great. Doesn't work in today's world. It just doesn't. So how to be fit for business, we really need to critically analyze what we have today. Is it going to work or not? So, my ask, when was the last time you did something different? Whether that be with your team, or your systems, your processes, your partners, or even something you learned. Give it a go. You might learn something different. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ruji. Well, to start with, when was the last time you did something different?
Actually, last week. So I booked myself into a gym session without really knowing what the class was going to be.
Oh, okay.
And I went in there and absolutely loved it.
And what was it?
Body combat.
Sounds dangerous. Okay. Right, let's move on to some questions. I think we've had some questions come in. Okay, we have here. Okay, so starting from the top there, what advice would you give to someone coming into the industry?
As in procurement?
Yeah.
I'd say come in doing something different. Critically analyze what we have, how it's set up. Ask the question, and just dare to do different.
Okay. And you mentioned at the beginning there about your daughter and that procurement and supply chain wasn't on the drop-down. So what do we need to do as an industry, both procurement or supply chain, to raise the profile and make it something that would be aspirational to younger people to choose that as a career?
Well, I mean, if you look at what's happened with the pandemic, everybody's talking about supply chain now. It's on the news, it's in the papers, people are understanding. So the awareness is there, but it's not yet defined where we're heading. So that's back to the point that I said, we're on that S-curve, and we really have to say, well, what do we stand for? Are we going to continue making it cumbersome and so much bureaucracy and paperwork? Or is it going to be simple? If we're going to digitalize, what does that mean? How does that look? And is it something we're going to continue doing pilots, or we're going to move it fast? So I think it's really things that shift the needle. We have to do it, and we have to stand by.
Okay. Any questions from the audience, by the way? If there are any questions, if you can just put your hand up and we'll bring a mic out to you. Okay, I'll come back in a second. Okay, what is the biggest challenge that you have encountered in your career?
Oh, wow. No challenge is big enough. I mean, I think it's one that one faces and you continue when you're on a change journey. It's how do you move at pace and ensure you're taking everybody with you? And that's something that you have to continuously do. I have a huge change appetite, but I'm also very aware that not everybody does. But I need everybody to go with me. I don't have all the strengths. And so ensuring that I don't leave anyone behind, constantly moving at pace, but taking everybody with you, is very important.
Yeah, and how do you take everybody with you? Because that's a challenge, right?
It is. I think it's, it comes back to, like I said, there's approaches you can take, such as OKR. So really working with everybody to co-design that end state, so everybody understands the why. Why are we going there? What is it going to be like on the journey? And they'll understand the journey and that it's going to get difficult and bumpy on the way. However, you're there together as a team. And so that co-designing the end state and constantly checking in on each other and reassuring that we're getting there. So that's something that definitely helps.
Okay. Could the industry do better to be more diverse?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I've been on several procurement leadership teams where I've been the only woman there, which has been interesting, or at least the first female member there, generally quite a bit younger than most people there. Yeah, I can tick many of those boxes. But definitely, I think we can be more diverse, but also not just diverse, bring a different persona. I think it's diverse also in terms of the cognitive diversity, bringing different ideas and really different approaches as well, being daring to put something forward and challenge and do that reverse mentoring to your leadership team as well.
We've got a question here relating to COVID. I think I'll rephrase that slightly. What was the biggest sort of challenge that you faced during the pandemic? I mean, I realise we are not out of the weeds yet, so to speak. But what was the biggest challenge you faced, and how did your organisation tackle that?
So I wasn't actually at JM during this, but what I have seen is that they've done very well. And I think the reason why they've done well to get through it is JM has this culture of togetherness, and so they made sure. A simple example I'll give you. So our site in India, JM have been offering the vaccine not just to the employees but also to their family members, and so I think it's companies who take care of their employee but also know that outside of work, the employees have a personal life, and same with the suppliers. And so I think JM is very responsible, and that's why the partners were there to help them through the pandemic.
Okay, and this question here, you mentioned adopting new technologies and adopting innovation. How do you overcome the risks involved with taking on startups or new technologies?
I mean, a lot of these technologies, they're really good. And I mean, at the end of the day, most of them are open source API, and it's a software. You subscribe, give it a go, and you can have a proof of concept or a pilot. It's agile process, and you can make those changes. If it doesn't work, you learn something, right? So I think taking that sort of pragmatic approach to it will really help. The really good thing is we have so much data. So putting in these different solutions and testing them out also helps you test your data integrity and your systems as well as people capability. So there's a lot of benefits for just testing out as well.
Okay. Okay, let's take the one in the middle there. Speaking of education and university, do you think that universities offer enough courses to lead you into a career in supply chain or procurement? And that's, well, I think we know the answer to that, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I have 2 kids at university and neither of them know. It's not. I mean, you've got adult courses and education, but I don't know. I've not seen anybody do a degree. Anybody know of a degree at undergraduate level? I've not come across it. I think there's a lot more we can do to start incorporating it into business studies, management studies, even sciences, but it's definitely not there at an undergraduate level.
Okay, and we'll take the bottom question here. Following on from the question about being a woman in procurement, what's the one piece of advice you would give your daughter about, it's not perusing, is it, pursuing her chosen career?
Yeah. So my daughter's gone into biochem, and it's, go kick ass. Yeah. So for me, it's just take it as far as you can, and once you've got there, push further.
Okay. Have you found being a woman in procurement difficult? Have you faced any adversities because of your gender?
No, I would not say. I've worked for some very good companies and had some very amazing colleagues and leaders who have supported me. I wouldn't say, I mean, yeah, okay, maybe on the supplier side, there has been a few. So, you know, some countries I have found when I've traveled supplier negotiations, it helps when I've taken a male colleague with me. There's still a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Okay, let's take this question at the top here. What do you think procurement's role should be around impending regulations, i.e. the EU Due Diligence Act, adapt processes in anticipation, or BAU to save costs?
I think procurement can really help here. I mean, this isn't the forum about Scope 3, but we're doing quite a lot around Scope 3, and so looking at what are the various organizations and institutions that we can be a part of and lobby to influence and put our opinions and expertise on what those policies should be like to serve industry and all industries. And procurement can really help there because we have that internal-external relationship. So being able to, you know, like I said earlier, going out and scouting for those partners and bringing in that intelligence and presenting that to the business as a valid business case. Procurement definitely is there as go out there and identify those opportunities. So I think there's definitely a role for us to play there, and a very exciting one as well.
Is it an exciting time to be in procurement right now?
Very exciting time. We're doing quite a lot of hiring, and everybody, you know, when I'm interviewing or speaking to people, I'm always telling them it's a very exciting time because we're into technology and innovation, relationship management, sustainability, which is so important to everybody. It's really so rich and challenging at the moment, and procurement's profile within the organization has also gone up now. So there's a lot more awareness. We're not, I remember back sort of mid-90s or something, there was all this noise around seat at the table. We're at the table. Now we need to drive the agenda. So it's very exciting because when you're coming into procurement now, you're defining that agenda.
Okay. Any last chance for questions before? Yes, gentleman at the back. Could we get a microphone across, please? Thank you, Nick. Right at the far corner, Nick. Thank you.
Focusing on your references to university and your daughter and whether or not we're on people's radars, I just wondered whether the current drama and variety in some of the supply chains in the country is helping to raise the profile. And do you think the fact that things are exciting, in inverted commas, at the moment will help to draw more people into the profession?
Yeah, absolutely. So at family conversations or speaking to my kids' friends, take me forever to explain to them what I do. What does procurement do? But now they understand. Everybody understands what's happening with supply chain, and it's not just the pandemic. And AstraZeneca, yay to those guys, they did amazing, right? But when you look at what's happening with the fuel shortage and then the logistics issues, everybody is talking more about these things, and so the information's out there. So there are some positive examples that's raising that awareness. There's also some, not so great ones, which is raising the awareness. But now it's that tipping point. The awareness is there, so people are talking about it, people are interested. And so we have to capitalize on the opportunity, and we have to really shape it and say, we're going to take this and we're going to drive it forward like this. So procurement, Scope 3, we're responsible for that emission in our supply chain. What are we going to do to really drive and make a difference there and make it impactful? If we can win that one, everyone's talking about it, everyone's excited, everyone gets it. It's not just about costs. Digitalization, that can really make things exciting, and especially now in a world where we're working online and disparately, it's really solving a lot of issues. And there's exciting technology out there, machine learning, AI, automation. It changes the whole persona, the shape of procurement, what it looks like. So I think, it's how do we capitalize on this and do more of this, but also how we're presenting this. I mean, to compliment to you guys how you set this up and the venue. I've been to other procurement conferences, and how dull and boring are they? So I think, it's really, we need to change up a few things and come out from the cupboards a bit.
I'm pretty sure we're going to be quoting you on that, so thank you for that. Is the final question here, is the flexible workforce created by COVID-19 here to stay, in your opinion?
So I spent the last almost 10 years in Europe, and yeah, it was much more flexible working arrangements there. So for me, it's a new concept that there's this whole expectation of go back to the office and at your desk and all of that. I think, if we're going to work globally and we're going to be looking for the best talent, they're not all going to sit in my town and on my street. They're going to be closer to the customer, to the supply chain, the end of it. So for that, I think that flexibility is required and it needs to be sustained. Digital solutions is going to help that. Partnership with, I think, different universities globally and not just the ones we know, that's also going to help it. So I think it should stay. I'd like it to stay.
Okay. All right, we will leave it there. So thank you, Ruji.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruji.